Get ready for the greatest roast of all time, the Roast of Tom Brady, a Netflix live event happening May 5th. Hosted by Kevin Hart, the 7-time world champion gets his cleats held to the fire by famous friends and frenemies on an unforgettable night where everything is fair game. Tune in on May 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific time for the Roast of Tom Brady, live only on Netflix.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Mother's Day is around the corner. Find the perfect gift for the mom in your life with a stunning piece of jewelry from Blue Nile. From timeless pearls to dazzling gemstones, Blue Nile has something she'll adore. Need it fast? Most items can ship overnight. Plus, enjoy guaranteed free shipping and returns. Don't miss our special Mother's Day deals. Save big on the season's most beautiful trends. For a limited time, get up to 50% off by going to BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Far better than your opening attempted sentence. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if that was a sentence or just a bunch of noises. I'm good. I have gotten over my annoyance of Liverpool's last bunch of results by just continually reminding myself that there's only 3 games left in the season, and then I don't have to watch this team play anymore, which is just fantastic. So we do have a game coming up this weekend. It is against Tottenham Hotspur. We will get to that. Before we do, though, let's have a look at what's taking place in Europe on Thursday night. It is the Europa League and Europa Conference League semi-finals. So we'll get through these a bit quicker than we did with the Champions League semi-finals because these clubs don't warrant enough discussion. Marseille play host to conquerors of Liverpool, Atalanta. Atalanta should progress from this tie, Karl. Marseille are fairly mediocre this season, a mid-table team in France. Atalanta, they're okay, but they're not great, but they should still have too much for Marseille, in my opinion.
I would agree over the 2 legs, in large part because Marseille are utterly woeful away from home. Atalanta obviously have had their own issues this year. We went over that in great detail. We don't need to continue doing so, but I mean, Marseille since 10th of December have won twice away from home. Once of those was against Thionville Lusitanos in the Cup. I've never heard of them. I assume they're small. The other one was against the bottom-ranked team in Ligue 1. So not tremendous away from home, but you know, if they put up a really good first leg performance where obviously they've got a noted excellent atmosphere and their home form this season is exceptional, then it should at least make the tie as a whole really interesting. They're probably going to need, I would imagine, a 2-goal cushion to go to Atalanta and be fairly confident. But obviously, if they do just win by 1, then you can be, optimistic that you can at least go there and maybe defend for your lives and get a draw.
Yeah. But what you don't want to do, because it would be a really stupid thing to do,
I know where you're going with this.
3-0 at home You don't want to do that because that's just
that would be less than ideal, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Right.
Aubameyang we should discuss.
Aubameyang is... I mean...
10 goals in this season in the Europa League, and that makes him the top all-time goal scorer in the competition. I feel that's a fairly good representation of what he has been in his career.
Yeah, a great Europa League player, a good Champions League player, but not necessarily an elite level Champions League player. And I mean, like, he has 27 goals this season in 46 games. And you would look at that and just go, oh, he's had a really good season, until you see he's only actually scored 14 in the league, which isn't great. Like, he had 2 exceptional years at Dortmund. Then he had a really good year, the year he transferred from Dortmund to Arsenal. So it was half and half. And then he had 2 really good years at Arsenal. So he had a 5-year spell that began in 15-16 and ended in 19-20, where he was really, really good. But, you know, that's over now. And he can still get the job done in the Europa League against mediocre competition. But I've seen a few Arsenal fans say, oh, maybe we made a mistake to get rid of him. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. The only mistake you made with him was when you gave him that new contract that you then had to pay off because Arteta didn't like him.
Yeah, they made a whole bunch of very questionable decisions. Around that time on contracts, Willian was another one. Aubameyang get an extension. I mean, they could have been a lot worse off than they eventually managed to get themselves out of that position, I think, even with some of the younger players who they gave big deals to around the time. But Aubameyang, in fairness, probably found a good spot to go and have a one last kind of big push in terms of his career at the top-ish levels. I haven't seen oodles of Marseille in Liga 1 this season, to be fair, but I mean, you look at the results, and obviously very, very good at home, very, very bad away, kind of tells you the type of team that they are, and the performance levels when I have been seeing them, and they use him well. They don't rely on him to make 40-yard sprints into the corner every single time. It's mostly about getting the service to him in the box and keeping him in dangerous areas, and that's reasonable, and that's why they can be in with a chance at reaching the semis, but it will be a big and difficult game.
Yeah. So the other semi-final then is Roma versus Leverkusen. Now, Leverkusen obviously have run away with the Bundesliga. They are in the final of the German Cup, and I think you would have to say probably favourites to win the Europa League as things currently stand. But Roma, having had a disappointing first half of the season under Jose Mourinho, have been pretty reinvigorated under Daniele De Rossi. Only the 2 defeats in the league under De Rossi. They've overcome Feyenoord, Brighton, and Milan, quite surprisingly, on this run. He seems to be getting the best out of a lot of his team. He seems far more tactically astute than I was expecting, because I have to say, I watched De Rossi's Spal team a few times because I love De Rossi as a player. I watched his Spal team a few times and they were desperately bad. And it wasn't just the players were bad. They just looked really poorly set up. He was only there for 4 months, and it wasn't a surprise when he got sacked. So when they appointed him as Roma manager, my immediate thought was, this is just because Mourinho was really popular with the fans. This is the ownership going, this is not going to be a popular move to get rid of him. So we need to bring in someone that the fans adore even more. And even if it's useless, even if it's terrible, they won't turn on De Rossi because it's De Rossi. That's what I thought it would be. Instead, he's come in and done really well. He's won 13 of his 20 games, only 3 defeats in all competitions, a 65% win rate. And frankly, Roma should probably be considering giving him the job moving forward. Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own two-footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin De Vries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's been a really, really good turnaround, and not just in terms of the results, but in terms of quite a few of the key players who looked way out of form, who looked like they've been badly used. They're just performing excellently. I think Paulo Dybala, it's fair to say, is chief among those, but even in the last couple of games, since he's come back from injury, you see Tammy Abraham getting a few minutes off the bench and a few more minutes off the bench, and then suddenly he's called upon to play when Lukaku obviously has gone down injured, so he came off the bench for a much sort of about 25 minutes. I think he played against Napoli and looked really sharp, looked pretty good, I thought, in terms of the areas of the pitch that he was trying to play in and how the ball was going to him. I think that bodes really well for next season, because obviously they won't have Lukaku, because why would you pay all the money to sign him permanently? So Abraham as a ready-made replacement now is a pretty good building block to go with. I guess he's going to be playing against Leverkusen.
Probably just try and loan Lukaku again and just annoy Chelsea even more. But yeah, no, nobody's going to buy him. Like this notion that Chelsea are going to get 40 to 50 million from this summer surely is just rooted in fantasy. Like, they made a mistake when they paid 100 million for him. And he was a disaster. And, you know, nobody has shown any real interest in buying him since. It's just been loan offer after loan offer. And he has a release clause, allegedly, of 37 million in his current Chelsea contract. There's just no way that anybody's paying that for him, because you never know which Lukaku you're going to get. And he's getting a little bit more injury prone as well. Karl, I have a feeling this might be where Leverkusen's unbeaten run comes to an end. Not in the tie. I think they'll advance in the tie.
Mother's Day is around the corner. Find the perfect gift for the mom in your life with a stunning piece of jewelry from Blue Nile. From timeless pearls to dazzling gemstones, Blue Nile has something she'll adore. Need it fast? Most items can ship overnight. Plus, enjoy guaranteed free shipping and returns. Don't miss our special Mother's Day deals. Save big on the season's most beautiful trends. For a limited time, get up to 50% off by going to BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
But we heard all year how unsustainable it was for Liverpool to continually go behind and rely on late goals. And it turned out that it was unsustainable. And if we look at recent results for Bayer Leverkusen, there's an awful lot of going behind, late goals, pulling things out of the fire. There hasn't been many really strong performances by Leverkusen in probably 2 months now. Like, back since they battered Bayern, which is actually almost 3 months ago. Like, they snuck by Heidenheim. They beat Mainz 2-1. Cologne had a player sent off early, and they still struggled a little bit to create real chances against them. We're very, very fortunate away to Qarabag, 2-0 down, got gifted one to get back into it, and then got a late equaliser. Wolfsburg had a player sent off early, and again, Leverkusen weren't great. Quarabeg were beating them 2-0 in Leverkusen, had a man sent off, and Leverkusen needed 2 goals after the 92nd minute to pull that one out. Then they played Freiburg. To be fair to them, they were really good in that game. A late Freiburg goal made it seem more competitive than it had been. They weren't impressive against Hoffenheim and were 1-0 down going into the 88th minute. They hammered Dusseldorf, but they're a lower league team. They weren't particularly good against Union Berlin. Berlin had a player sent off. Leverkusen got a penalty. Other than that, quite poor. They weren't great in the away leg against West Ham. They did beat West Ham comfortably at home, and they hammered Werder Bremen in a really good performance. But against Dortmund, it was the 97th minute. And then this past weekend, they're 2-0 down. Adli gets one back. But again, it's the 96th minute. I just don't know if they can continue to ride out doing this as often, scoring this amount of late goals and pulling things out when teams have, kept them at bay for as long as they have. They've obviously won the Bundesliga comfortably. They've got 3 games left. It would be a surprise if they didn't go unbeaten now in the Bundesliga. They're going to win the cup as well because Kaiserslautern are a lower league team. But I just feel like they might lose one of these legs against Roma, this leg in particular in Rome, but then win the tie next week in the second leg.
I do wonder if there's obviously the fatigue and the how difficult it is to be good mentally and technically over and over again. That's also a factor, obviously. But I do also wonder how much winning the Bundesliga, relatively speaking, as early as they did, has impacted this. Because like you say, it was mid-February when they beat Bayern. That was kind of it.
It was over then, yeah.
Yeah, it was done. So they had a couple of games where they had to still win, obviously, and that's fine. But there's not been, I would say, up until the late Karabag second leg, not really been any games where they've, where it's really mattered, if you know what I mean. There's not been a game where you've got to come out, you've got to play well, you've got to make a statement and get the win. All of those things haven't really happened because they beat West Ham in the first leg at home. And like I say, it was pretty comfortable. I know it's only 2-0, doesn't sound like the biggest scoreline, but it was.
It could have been 4 or 5 that night.
Yeah, and they did come relatively late, those goals, but the performance was very, very dominant. I just don't think they've really had a game which matters all that much since then. So I think that maybe that has played into it a bit. Like Dortmund, it didn't really matter. Again, that one was 97th minute that they got the equaliser. Leverkusen away to West Ham in the second leg. It was the 90th minute. Frimpong scored for 1-1 on the night. So, yeah, I think maybe certainly early in matches, I get the impression that it's the lack of necessity has impacted the performance. And then obviously later on in games where they realise, oh, come on, we really want to be unbeaten, maybe they kick into gear a little bit more often then. But like you say, eventually that won't happen. Eventually it will become too difficult or too stubborn, or there'll be misfiring, or a goalkeeper will have a worldie or whatever it is, and it can be the end of that particular run. The worry for them then is that it's very difficult to get themselves going again for the next irrelevant game. Let's say they lose to Roma in the first leg, when you're away to Eintracht 3 days later in a game that doesn't matter because you've already won the league. Does that suddenly become 2 defeats in a row?
Yeah.
And then you have to go into the second leg against Roma and really raise both your performance levels, but also the mentality around the squad again, because you suddenly, we're not invincible then, that kind of thing might start playing on them. So it's something that Bayern struggled with for quite a few years, if you remember, when they weren't really reaching past the quarterfinals. It's something that PSG struggled with for quite a long time because they were basically wrapped up the title in January, February in Ligue 1, and then hadn't really had too much of a test by the time Champions League quarterfinals and so on came around. So perhaps it's a little bit of that. Generally speaking, this should be the tie of the week, I think, including the Champions League games to my mind, just because of the level of Leverkusen, the sort of the confidence that's in Roma at the minute, the fact that Leverkusen are having this historic season, they could win a treble, they could win 2, or they could win just the 1. They could go unbeaten and win just 1, basically, because could lose 1 on penalties or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here, and Roma obviously have their own domestic challenges going on as well that they're still very, very much fighting for. And I think really everything is set up in this tie for it to be excellent across the two legs.
Yeah, I mean, Roma are currently in position to take the 5th Champions League spot in Serie A, because it looks like it'll be them and the Bundesliga that will get the spots over the Premier League, because, well, all the English teams shat the bed in the last round. Well, bar Villa, but nobody cares about the Conference League. But it's no longer in their own control domestically. Atalanta are 2 points behind and have a game in hand. And Roma have a pretty tough run in. They've got Juve next, then away to Atalanta, which is a massive game. If they can go there and win, that might be enough to seal it for them. They go Genoa home then and then Empoli away. So, if they get through the next two, they might be able to hold on to that spot. But it is going to be tough for them. And it's very clear that their aim is to get into the Champions League for next year. And if it's not going to be through the league, then the Europa League is the other alternative for them. And they've got to get by Bayer Leverkusen. Now, that hilariously could set up a final with Atalanta, which would be quite funny if it was the two of them going for the Champions League in the league and in this. And let's just say that Atalanta pip Roma in the league, and then Atalanta beat Roma in the final. I don't know what happens. I don't think that they're not going to get a 6th spot. Roma aren't getting in if they finish 6th and lost the final, surely.
So there is a way where you can have like 5, 6, 7 teams. So.
Oh, I know they can have 60. So, what I'm saying is, if Atalanta got 5th in the league and Roma won the Europa League, they'd have 6 teams in. Yeah. But if Atalanta get 5th in the league and then beat Roma in the final, I just don't see them giving Roma an extra spot.
No, sorry. If they haven't won it one way or another, they don't get it for sure. No.
Yeah.
No. It's only the only way you get the extra spots is if you actually have the additional team earn the extra spot one way or the other. Yeah.
So that could get quite interesting. Are we both in agreement that an Atalanta Bayer Leverkusen final is what we think is the outcome here?
I think so.
I think Roma will make it tough, though.
I could see Roma winning that tie, to be honest. I could see, I do think most of the time, you look back at all the quarters and semis over the last few years of these competitions, we usually get one team, like Liverpool, who you think are going to be like dead certs for the final, more or less, and that you expect to see them there, and they don't. I kind of feel like Roma just have...
Hello there! Have you ever found yourself getting ready to watch the Liverpool match? You've got your mates round, you've got your drinks, you've got your snacks, you're all set to go. It's going to be a good day. And then you find out, the game's not actually being broadcast in your region. There's the heartbreak, there's rage, there's despair, there's fury. You're upset. You're looking for a solution. Well, we've teamed up with NordVPN to bring you a game-changing solution. That's right. With NordVPN, you can switch your virtual location to a country where the game's on live. It's like having a global ticket to sports, TV shows, and movies from all around the world. And here's the best part. If you go to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index, you'll score the best discount on your NordVPN plan. Plus, our link gives you 4 extra months free on the 2-year plan. And that's what we call a winning streak. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, what if it's not for me? What if I don't like it? What if I'm not getting the use of it? Don't worry about it. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's totally risk-free. I've been using NordVPN to catch all the Liverpool matches and TV shows that I'd normally miss out on. It's totally transformed both my weekends and my TV watching. And not only that, not only does it give me access to stuff from all around the world with the click of a button, it keeps all my data safe. It means that the miscreants, the ne'er-do-wells, what my grandmother would have called scallywags, who lurk on the internet to try and steal your information, can't get to your information. NordVPN keeps it safe for you. So don't let geo restrictions bench you this season. Visit nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and make sure that you're in the game, no matter when or where it's being played. Remember, it's not just sports, it's your all-access pass to binge-worthy TV shows and blockbuster movies from all around the globe. NordVPN literally unlocks the world for you and keeps you safe from the world. So don't miss out. Head over to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and let the fun and games begin.
A much better position of where they are right at the minute. Like, they did lose to Bologna a few weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, maybe, something like that. But again, Bologna are like top 4 in Italy. It's not like they lost to mid-table crap because they were not concentrated or whatever like that. So I kind of feel like if Roma get a really good first leg result, like maybe a 2-0, 2-1, I wouldn't be that surprised if they go there and draw at Leverkusen and go through. So just like yesterday's pod, Champions League pod that we did, to be slightly different, I will go for Roma.
My hope is that Roma win because I want De Rossi to do well, but there is that thing of just wanting to see a team do something historic, which is obviously what Leverkusen are attempting to do. Moving on then to the Europa Conference League. No need to spend too much time on this. Aston Villa, Olympiacos, and Fiorentina Club Brugge. Olympiacos overcame Fenerbahce on penalties. Villa overcame Lille on penalties. Fiorentina knocked out mighty Victoria Plizen, and Club Brugge knocked out PAOK of Greece. Is there any reason to expect anything other than a Villa-Fiorentina final?
Only due to VAR, bad refereeing, indecision, stupidity, own goals, and or Ollie Watkins leaving his shooting boots in some random airport.
Yeah, that's all fair. So, yeah, Villa, Fiorentina. That should be a good game, to be fair. If that is the final, that should be pretty good. Right, let's move on.
Another Thursday night match then.
Another Thursday night game is Spurs versus Chelsea in the Premier League. A game that I'm not quite sure why it's been played on Thursday. I assume it's because they don't want a Premier League game clashing with Champions League games.
I assume so.
But this is a huge game for Spurs. They have 2 games in hand on Aston Villa. They are 7 points behind Villa and 6 goals worse off than Villa. They do need to win both games in hand to really make a fist of potentially getting into the Champions League spots. But the other game in hand is against Man City. So if they fail to pick up 3 points here, it becomes really hard to see Villa to see Tottenham rather overhauling Villa. They play Chelsea, then they play us, obviously we'll come on to that. Then they do get Burnley home, then it's City, which is obviously really tough. And then Sheffield United away. So 2 easy games, Burnley and Sheffield United, but 3 really difficult ones, or should be really difficult ones. The Chelsea one, not because Chelsea are good, but just because it's a London derby, and Chelsea do tend to get themselves up for big games at home. Small games at home, not so much, but big games at home, they do. And Chelsea, like, they're still hoping that they could sneak their way into European football for next year. They're currently 5 points behind Newcastle in 7th and 6 behind United in 6th, but they do have this game in hand. So a win here for them, given the form of the other teams, could potentially see them sneak their way into Europe for next year.
Do you think they will, and do you think they deserve it on the basis of the entire season?
No, absolutely not. I think they don't deserve it in the slightest. I think everybody involved should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. Do you know what it is, Karl? When we play and we play badly and we lose, you can often accept it because there's a decent amount of effort put in. because you don't see our team just quit and give up. But I've watched Chelsea on a couple of occasions this season just give up. Against Arsenal recently, they gave up. They quit. And when they came to Anfield early in the season, there was a moment in that game where it was very clear that they downed tools, led by captain on the night, Ben Chilwell. And to me, that type of thing is unforgivable. I can accept a bad performance. I can accept a loss, but to do it like that is unforgivable. But I mean, if you're a Chelsea fan and your team has spent £1 billion, are you looking at that team and thinking, we don't need to do anything more, we've spent £1 billion, there's a title-winning team in here? Definitely not. But at least you won the transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like a lot of what has happened there over the last 2 years. I have elements of sympathy for some people there, but not a whole lot to go around, to be honest. And I mean, like, I guess there's going to have to be some outgoings this summer as well, because otherwise they're going to be in, fairly significant issue for next season. But that depends on which set of rules are then adopted. Basically, I assume you would have at least read or heard about it, that 2 seasons from now we're going to have the tethering approach instead of the overall FFP, right?
Yeah, so it will be based off the TV and commercial revenue or commercial income of the club with the lowest income in the league, which just for this season, you would say Burnley as an example. And it will be 5 times?
It's not set yet. They've still got to decide and agree that, but expected to be 4.5, 5 times, whatever that number is.
And that number, I think, for this season is likely to be about 110 million.
Yeah.
So if it's 5 times that, that's 550 million is your spending cap.
Yeah.
If it's 4 times that, though, the big clubs are in trouble, because the big clubs can't run like that. Mm-hmm. Like, you've got Man City's wage bill this year is over 400 million.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it quite closes the gap, but it's certainly going to stop it getting any wider, let's say, up until there is a realization that for the big clubs, the only way, therefore, you can continue to spend money is by helping the Premier League as a whole get more money in for TV revenue. If you know what I mean? That's what the basis of this approach is going to have to be if they want further expenditure possibilities for themselves. So anyway, if that is the new semi-agreed ruling for next season, because it's not due to come into force until 2 seasons from now, but the plan is that they will, gentlemen's agreement between themselves to use it for next season as well. If that's the case, then again, it will be a different numbering, shall we say, that Chelsea have to abide by, or have already abided by, for their expenditure, which has already happened. So it is very, very muddled at the minute what they will actually be needing to report, but I think we can still assume that there will be a few players they actively try to get rid of, especially maybe 1 or 2 of those accountancy stars, the homegrown products.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're potentially facing a breach for last season. They tried to be clever and work around that by selling themselves a couple of hotels. But it seems like what they did was they massively overinflated the value of those hotels. So that potentially lands them in hot water, because not only would it be a breach, they'd also then face a second charge of attempting to manipulate, which is more severe and could lead to a bigger deduction. They're facing a breach, obviously, for this season because their spending was outrageous. So they need to sell players by June 30th, or Todd Bowley's going to have to buy some land off himself, which, again, the Premier League are not going to just go, okay, Todd, that's fine, no matter how clever that fella thinks he is. Everything he's done since buying the club has been a mess. He's hired far too many people. Like, they must have the biggest recruitment staff in world football because they hired people from everyone. They hired 5 different people that were doing the same job at different clubs and launched them into a room together and wondered why it didn't work. You've got the boys they brought in from Brighton, who really and truly might be the most overrated recruitment people in the world, the people that actually worked for Brighton, because the real recruitment stars at Brighton don't work for the club. They work for Star Lizard and they work under NDA. So people don't know who they are. So you can't hire them away. That's who does the recruitment for Brighton. The likes of Winstanley and stuff is just a paper pusher, doing background checks and stuff, and then maybe taking part in negotiations. Same reason Dan Ashworth went to Newcastle, was hailed as this recruitment genius and wasn't at all. Very good administrator, and Winstanley's probably a very good administrator, but recruitment geniuses these people are not. What they've done at Chelsea is they've gone in and they've just played football manager in real life. Any player that looked in any way enticing, they just went and signed. Oh, we already have 3 left-footed right wingers? Well, here's another one. Let's go and get him. Is he better than the ones we have? No, but he's the same. So it's just been a mess. Like, you look at that team, there's no 2 centre-backs owned by Chelsea that you would look at and say, that to me makes sense as a pairing. Like, Fofana and Colwell, I would say, are the 2 best centre-backs at the club. But Fofana's always injured. But also, I don't think they're a pairing as a 2. I think they could be really good as 2 parts of a 3, but they're both kind of back foot centre-backs. Like, they're more the sweeper type. They're not the type to go and command things in the air. They're not an aggressive front-footed centre-back like a Kanate or a Gabriel or a Romero. They're all more lesser versions of Van Dijk, you know?
If I gave you that Chelsea squad this summer and said, like, Colwell's obviously signed a new deal last year and he's long-term, so he stays, right? But you only allow one other centre-back to stay. Who do you pick? I know I was thinking of this the other day. I know mine, and I would be absolutely fine to lose all of the rest of them if it came to that.
I'd probably keep Nathaniel Chalobah.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
Sports Social Podcast Network.